Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this episode, what I want to talk about is Jay Z. I think there was a time when Jay Z was incredibly dope. But before I get into that, let me start off by saying, and I want to say this very slow and very intentional. I love Jay Z. Love him. Huge fan. I love Jay Z. I want that to be clear before I get started because I think sometimes when you speak about people, sometimes, particularly when you're talking about entertainers, some people tend to take it personal. And this is strictly for those who will take it personal because if you just look at the picture, the cover art, and the title of this episode, you may think that I'm on here to hate on Jay Z. Nah, far from it. I love Jay Z. Uh, I've actually been sitting on this idea for the podcast for a while now. It's been probably a year and a half or so, and I gotta give a big shout out to my man Eclectic. Eclectic did a similar podcast, and it was called When Kanye Was Dope, and I clearly stole borrowed the idea, of course, with his consent, to do this one on my man Jay Z, and he was with it. I think, and as you heard the banter from me and my boys Zell and Derek, that was on a whole nother podcast that we recorded months ago. And I told them that this podcast was coming. Um, and it's here, and I want that to be clear. I want to let it be known that I love Jay Z. I am a huge fan. I've been rocking with Jay Z since the summer of 1996 when I purchased Reasonable Doubt. And I remember the line that hooked me on Jay Z. On Dead Presidents, he said, "Partner, I'm still spending money from 88." And I was like, whoa. I mean, that sounds simple, but it was so dope and it was so kind of in your face, but it was very clever and witty at the same time. And honestly, I hadn't heard somebody spit like that in a minute. And that made me want to know more and more about him. Now, again, and I've said this on the Reasonable Doubt podcast, I've said it on other podcasts before. Um, you know, let someone from who was around in 1996 will let me be the first to tell you. Nobody flocked to go pick up Reasonable Doubt. They didn't. I think I got it maybe a month after it came out. I know I didn't get it the first week that it came out. It was a while before. Between the second week and maybe probably my guess is about a month. But once I heard it, I was hooked. And 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 nobody, I repeat, nobody ever uttered the words, "Oh shit, this is a classic," in 1996. They didn't. Now, is Reasonable Doubt a classic? Of course it is. But just for clarification for some of you who may be a little new to this, or maybe a little bit new to Jay Z, I don't know. But I love Jay Z. Again, huge fan, been rocking with him since 1996. One of the things I love about Jay Z, man, much like a lot of people, I love the hustle. I love his hustle. I love the way that he came onto the scene. As many of you know, the story is it's an older story, but I mean, like, he couldn't get a record deal. The first time we heard Jay Z rhyme was with Jazz O, and he was rapidy rapidy blah 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 blah. He was with the rapidy raps, fast rap, and nobody wasn't really checking for that at the time. At least record labels weren't, and they were like, "Nah, get the hell out of here." And his hustle, because he believed in himself and believed in what it was that he was doing, he and his crew of Kareem, Biggs, Burke, and Damon Dash, um, they started Rockefeller Records. And as the story goes, Reasonable Doubt was supposed to be his first and only album. His intent was to push the label and push other artists, but that never happened. But yeah, man, Jay-Z, I love Jay-Z. I love the hustle, the grind mentality that he had even back then. And I think a lot of people, even though they may or may not admit it, I think a lot of people admire Jay-Z, particularly as his stardom began to rise. There are some who say that, Jay-Z wouldn't be as big if Biggie had been alive. I don't buy into that, because Jay-Z was pretty successful before, Biggie checked out of here. And he and Biggie had plans to do a collaborative album. So I don't know that Biggie would not have been, or Jay-Z would not have been successful at all. So nah, I don't buy into that. But yeah, his hustle, his grind, and he made it. I mean, like, he was a successful hustler. He came from the streets where he sold drugs, and he got into the music business, and he didn't have he talks about his marketing plan, but he really didn't have much of a plan. Like, it was either that or that was it. Like, there was nothing else that he had planned to do. And it worked. And he came with these braggadocious rhymes. And I hate to use the word, but he has swag. I mean, like, people were really, really fellas. I'll put it like this: the fellas that I knew, the fellas who listened to rap music, they were really, really checking for Jay-Z, because he really, when he sat down, well, he didn't sit down and physically, right? But when he came up with these rhymes, like, it was so clever and so witty, like, you literally had to break it down. Like, you had to study this stuff. And it's been that way since 1996. Very clever, very witty. And I think, just on a personal level, because I'm someone who, I think I'm clever, I think I'm witty. Not like this where I would put it in a rhyme, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it made sense. Double entendres, triple entendres. We would marvel at his words. Jay-Z was dope. There's no doubt about that. I think that goes without saying. Jay-Z was incredibly dope. And then you get the hits. And then you get the hits. And then you get the hits. Jay-Z had hit after hit after hit after hit. He became a superstar, and he still was delivering. Jay-Z told you himself he held you down 6 straight summers. And if we're being honest, he wasn't lying. He really did. And even in the midst of all of that, I mean, like, he still delivered great songs, great albums, and even what some of you would call grown man rap. I wish I had time to talk about how there was a segment of people who heard him rap on 444. Oh, Jay-Z, he's on some grown man rap shit. Like, he didn't have grown man raps when he rapped Regrets or Lucky Me or Meet the Parents. Lucky Me is low key a banger. I love Regrets. Meet the Parents, that is one of the dopest songs on that album. So, I mean, like, 444 wasn't the first time that Jay-Z got deep. But, you can't please everybody. There were some people who his detractors, all you talk about is money and women and cars and jewelry. And I mean, that would always be my response. And you want Jay-Z to rap about we are the world? You want him to rap about self-destruction? I mean, that wasn't his thing. But I love Jay-Z. And I'm sure that many of you who are listening to this episode love Jay-Z. So I had to make that clear. And I'm going to keep saying that. Like, I love Jay-Z. So this is not a hating episode on Jay-Z. In my opinion, Jay-Z is personally in my top 3 MCs of all time. He's number 3. And number 3 ain't a bad place to be. There are some people who will have him in their top 5. There are some people that will have him at 1. I don't know anybody that doesn't have Jay-Z at least in their top 10. If you're in the top 10, that's pretty damn good. Even kids of today who probably really not really up on his music, they still got Hove in the top 10. So that's good enough for me. But Jay-Z was dope. I mean, one of the things that set Jay-Z apart was his flow. He definitely had flow. I mean, like, there's no doubt about that. Jay-Z had flow. He had a defined flow. He had a refined flow. His rhymes, his cadences. He had lyrical precision when he rhymed. He was in the pocket. Like, there's a such thing musically as the pocket. In a lot of ways, Jay-Z defined the pocket. He had many pockets. And the thing that I loved about when Jay-Z was dope was that anytime he came out with a song or he came out with an album, other MCs took notice. Always. It never failed. If you don't believe me, go back in time. Check the records. It's all documented. This is not just my opinion. This is something that actually really happened. When Jay-Z dropped an album, it would be nothing for you to get commentary from fellow MCs about the album. And almost everybody bought it. So it's not like you weren't going to go to, Busta Rhymes and say, hey, what do you think about the new Jay-Z album? He's like, oh, I ain't heard it yet. You weren't going to ask Scarface, hey, what do you think about the new Jay? It's all right. No, these people are his peers, so they were definitely checking on. Go ask LL what he thought about the Black Album. He bought it. Go ask Rakim what he thought about the Black Album. He has an opinion on it. Go ask KRS-One. And again, these people that I'm talking about, these are his peers, right? So it's documented that they have conversations and they have, been interviewed and asked about Jay-Z and his legacy and all of this stuff. And this was many, many years ago when he was dope. Again, lyrical precision. And of course, I mean, like Jay-Z, I don't have to play a bunch of songs for you to know what I'm talking about. I mean, like, I can just give you some lyrics. Like, Jay-Z could hit you with stuff like, with joints like, I sell ice in the winter. I sell fire in hell. I'm a hustler, baby. I sell water to a well. I was born to get cake, move on and switch states. Or he could hit you with, I'm so far ahead of my time. I'm about to start another life. Look behind you. I'm about to pass you twice. Never read the Quran or Islamic scriptures. Only Psalms I read was on the arms of my niggas. Tattoos, so I carry on like I'm non-religious. Cap whoever standing between Sean and Figures. And these are different songs, of course. But I know you know this, but I'm going to tell you this anyway. This is different songs. And as far as critics, tell me I don't get it. Everybody can tell you how to do it. They never did it. Now these niggas is mad. Oh, they call me camel, but I mastered the drought. What the fuck? I'm an animal. Come on, man. That's Hove, man. Dope. This is when he was dope. Let me guess. They said it was money round here. And the rest is me stopping you from getting it, correct? Sorry to hear that. My guess is that you got work at the hotel. I'll take care of that. You'll soon see. Now give me the room key. You're twitching. Don't do that. You're making me nervous. My crew, well, they do pack. These dudes is murderers. Come on, man. Come on. What are we talking about here? I pack heat like I'm the oven, like I got oven doors. I pack heat like oven doors. Come on, man. Again, dope. This is when he was dope. And I can't help the poor if I'm one of them. So I got rich and gave back. To me, that's the win-win. So the next time you see the homie and his rim spinning, just know my mind is working like just like them rims, that is. I mean, I could quote the whole song from Where I'm From. I mean, if you really want to get technical. I mean, Hove would give you joints like, a wise man once told me, don't argue with fools, because people from a distance can't tell who is who. So stop with that childish shit. I'm grown. Please leave it alone. Don't throw rocks at the stone. Don't bark up that tree. That tree will fall on you. Come on, man. This is vintage Hove. Again, I love Hove, man. I love Jay-Z. I love Jay-Z. Be clear. Not here to hate, just stating the facts. And I think because I love Jay-Z, I think I can speak about Jay-Z objectively. And that's what this podcast is about. There was clearly a time when Jay-Z was dope. Hard stop. Jay-Z is no longer dope. Lyrically. Let me explain. I love Jay-Z. But if we're being honest, Jay-Z fell off. He doesn't rhyme the same like how he used to. And it's not even so much about the subject matter. I spoke a little earlier about Jay-Z being in the pocket. He's no longer in the pocket. There are times and there are songs that you can listen to and on albums that you can listen to. And I don't even know where the pocket is. I'm being honest. And it's not like he's incapable of it, but it's just not there. He's just not there. And I think if we're being honest, and I think part of the issue that I have with some people is that they're not honest about Jay-Z. I feel because I love him, I can get on this podcast and talk and speak honestly and talk about him and not be hating. And I'm saying this with love. And honestly, I know for a fact Jay-Z's going to hear this episode. Is he going to call me? Probably not. But I love Jay-Z. But no, he doesn't rhyme the same. And it's not even, honestly, it's not even about his subject matter, because I know some of you are probably thinking, well, you know, he's older now. He's not going to, you can't expect him to rhyme about drugs and girls and, you know, all of this other stuff. And he's mature. So he's rapping about Basquiat and, you know, paintings and, you know, going to European vacations. Cool. I get that. No, I don't expect Jay-Z to be rhyming like he's still in Marcy Projects, because he's not. And he hasn't been probably since we heard him first on Reasonable Doubt. But he's no longer in that pocket. And if you don't believe me, you can go back and listen to some of these albums. He's not. And like, it's not even near the pocket. But he's Jay-Z and we kind of give him a pass. And as a fan, I can't give him that pass. I mean, I'm gonna listen. Don't get me wrong. I've listened to everything. Here's another opinion that I have, and it's been stated before, and I'll state it again. Jay-Z got married in 2008. He ain't been the same since. I love Jay-Z. I'm married too, right? Jay-Z started dating Beyonce, I think 2001, maybe. Yeah, I think around 2001. Got married in 2008. And I don't know when I think they had their daughter 2011, I think, because she's the same age as my daughter. But nah, he's not the same. And don't get me wrong, marriage will change a guy. I've changed. I mean, I'm married, you know. Shout out to me and my wife. But he ain't been the same. And I don't know, and again, I don't even think it's subject matter. He's just not the same MC. And it's not that I don't think that I have unreal expectations. I expect dopeness anytime Jay-Z gets behind the mic. He doesn't write anything down, allegedly. So anytime he sits in that corner and mumbles his songs in his head and then he goes in the booth and spits it, I expect greatness. I'm sorry. That's what I got the first 10 plus years of his career. So I'm not going to settle for just, mediocre. Not going to settle for Hobo Hove Zell. Shout out to Zell. But yeah, he's not in the pocket. And again, it's not about the subject matter. He's not in the pocket when he's rhyming. There are songs that like the flow just ain't even there. Like you're like, what the fuck is he doing? What is he talking about? And that's if you're listening with an honest ear. And I think sometimes Jay-Z fans like myself tend to not listen with an honest ear because they're just so happy to hear him rapping. And I know, yeah, Hove don't rap a lot. And rightfully so. He doesn't have to. I mean, like he's at a point in his life and his career where he doesn't have to get he obviously he doesn't make it. He doesn't need the money that's made from record sales or touring or anything like that. The man's a billionaire. And he didn't make his billions selling drugs. He didn't make his billions from rapping solely. He's a businessman. A businessman. And I mean, like, that's who he is. But no, he honestly, he hasn't been the same since 2008. Go back and look at those albums that came out since 2008, and you make the decision. 2007, American Gangster comes out. 2009, The Blueprint 3. 2013, Magna Carta Holy Grail. 2017, 444. Let me go back. 2011, Watch the Throne. In 2018, Everything is Love. Those weren't good albums. I mean, Watch the Throne was pretty decent, but that was him and Kanye. And so maybe Kanye brought something out of him. But there was some joints on there that was like, eh. But 444, come on, man. I mean, like I got to the point where I'm not arguing with y'all about 444. It's okay. It's not a great album. It's not. You will find a lot of people who love 444. They'll tell you they love 444. And you ask why, and they'll say, oh, he was so open on that. Folks were just happy because Jay-Z told his business, right? It was the response to what was Beyonce's, what was her album? Lemonade. That's it. Yeah, that was the response to Lemonade. It wasn't like, and again, the album was just okay. There was no lyrical miracle, blow you away lyrics on that album. The story of OJ was cool. But, I didn't need to know Jay-Z's marital issues. I didn't need to know that his mother, you know, had a lover and that she had come out. Cool for her, but I mean, I didn't need to know that. But Jay-Z told y'all a whole bunch of personal stuff and everybody ran with it. But it's not Blueprint. It's not. It's not Reasonable Doubt. It's not, the Black Album. Not even close. But, I digress. But again, I think, you find people who really, love that album because again, he spilled the beans. Because truth be told, Jay-Z and Beyonce are very private people. Outside of their music, we know very little about them, and we knew even less about their marriage, which is cool. That's the way it should be. Keep folks out your business. Hell, it's hard enough for us regular folks to keep people out of our business. I can't imagine if my wife was the biggest superstar in the world. Yeah, I can't even go to the grocery store with her. But nah. Oh, and Magna Carta, Holy Grail. Oh my gosh. That was trash. The flow, everything. That was not a good album at all. It was not. If you're being honest, it wasn't. But again, I don't know. Sometimes people, have a hard time being, honest and subjective about Jay and his music and his discography. And another thing I'll say about Jay-Z is that one of the reasons why he isn't dope, the bad makes you go crazy for the good. Again, I love Jay-Z. Let it be known. I love Jay-Z. But the bad makes you go crazy for the good. Now, at the time of this recording, Jay-Z just dropped a verse on a DJ Khaled song called God Did, right? And folks went stupid. And let me just let me just share with you what I came to find in 3 separate group chats, right? So the album came out on a particular Friday at midnight. And by the time I got to started chatting in my group chats around 9 a.m. that Friday morning, that Jay-Z verse was in 3 of the group chats that I'm in, right? Here's the funny thing. The YouTube link for the verse was in each of those group chats. And it was only that verse. And that was Friday, right? So between the group chat and seeing everybody discussing it on Twitter and people doing deep dives and all this other stuff, it was crazy, right? It wasn't until Sunday, 2 days later, that I realized that it was an entire song. What I mean by that is on that particular track, there's 2 other rappers on the song. I think it's Rick Ross and Lil Wayne. But what's interesting is I didn't even know that because the YouTube links that were posted is so craftily. I'm getting tongue tied here. Are so cleverly crafted that all you hear is Jay-Z rapping. And then when he finishes, the song goes off. So I just assumed that it was DJ Khaled featuring Jay-Z. And the thing just said, on the YouTube link, it said Jay-Z verse. Or it said God Did featuring Jay-Z. And so I'm like, it's not like I'm going to listen. It's not like I'm going to listen to a DJ Khaled album. I mean, why would I ever do that? But people went crazy. And again, it was presented to me as if it was just one Jay-Z on the song by himself. But even beside the point, people were talking about, oh, this is one of his best verses. And I mean, like everywhere you go up and down Twitter, the Twitter timeline, there were these deep dives and, people talking about it and, breaking down each bar. And I was like, and there was some people saying like this was like one of his greatest verses ever, asking where it ranked. And I'm like, this song literally has been out for a day. You're gonna put this verse, because keep in mind, Jay-Z is he's rapping for 4 minutes, right? Which is different because Lil Wayne's verse and Rick Ross's verse aren't that long. So he gets his shit off on a 4-minute verse, and that's another reason why I guess myself and other people probably assumed that it was a song, because he raps for 4 minutes. You're not rapping if it's just a regular guest feature. You're not rapping for 4 minutes. But Khaled lets him get his shit off, and he goes in. But I mean, like, I was just a little surprised at all of the deep dives and people going crazy. I mean, they did the same when Jay-Z did a verse a couple of years ago with the late Nipsey Hussle. Shout out to Nip. Rest in peace. And people were going crazy. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Jay-Z just killed this verse. And it was a dope verse. And don't get me wrong, the God Did verse is a very good verse. But if we're being honest, Lil Wayne's verse is just as good. He delivered a dope verse with Nipsey on the song What It Feels Like. But if we're being honest, Nipsey's verse is just as good. And Nipsey wasn't even here. So I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell y'all. He's not there anymore. But here's what Jay-Z is. I've said this before to some of my friends. I think Jay-Z, at this point in his lifetime, because at the time of this recording, he's what, 50? How old is he? 52. And I'm going to use a basketball reference, right? He's the player that used to average 32 points a game. Now he averages 20, right? So he's still better than most of his peers. He's still averaging, when he comes out and puts the shoes on, he can still get you 20, right? And there's nothing to sneeze at for somebody getting 20, because everybody can't get 20 points consistently, averaging 20 points a game. So Jay-Z rolling out of bed can get you 20 points, meaning he can roll out of bed and get you his most mundane of verses are better than most people, at least his contemporaries. That's rapping right now. Even if you want to bring in the young guns, he's better than most of them, right? However, every now and then Jay-Z, even though he averages 20, every now and then he'll give you a 50-point game. The God Did verse, 50-point game. What It Feels Like with Nipsey, 50-point game. And that's great because I love Jay-Z. Again, I love the guy. But he's incapable of doing this for 14 tracks. He couldn't do this for 14 tracks on an album. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that Jay-Z should not make another album, because nobody tells, Mick Jagger and Rod Stewart and all these other people in rock and roll and stuff like that, stop making music. Nobody told Willie Nelson to go sit down somewhere. So I'm not going to say that. Jay-Z is more qualified. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm sure he'll be in the Rap Hall of Fame, so forth and so on. One of the greatest to ever do it. Again, he's in my top 3. He's number 3. So I don't think that he necessarily has to shut it down. But I think he's not capable of doing this for 14 tracks when you make him do an album, or when he decides to do an album. And if we're being honest, and this has happened probably since at least Blueprint, Jay-Z is always compared to Jay-Z. It is what it is. Does he have contemporaries like Nas, Scarface? Yes, he does. Busta Rhymes, KRS-One, LL? Yes, he does. He does have contemporaries. He does have people that you can kind of compare them to. Eminem, whomever, right? Wayne, Drake, if you want to go newer. But if we're being honest, Jay-Z's albums are compared to Jay-Z's albums. Anytime Jay-Z drops an album, the first thing that you'll hear people say after they finish listening to it is, where do you think this ranks in his discography? Because honestly, he has been the point of where he's measured. He's not measured against many others. And I mentioned my boy Zell, like we had a conversation recently. I said, you can't expect him to do, no, Zell said, you can't expect him to do that at 50. Close quote. And I said, Nas did. But I digress. I love Jay-Z. I love Jay-Z. There was a time when Jay-Z was dope. And you can make a case that he's dope now, but he just ain't as dope as he used to be. And that's okay. That's going to do it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. The podcast drops every Thursday at midnight. From time to time this year, we will drop bonus episodes on Sunday. Again, that's going to do it for me. I'm your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.